A seventh date that wasn't supposed to happen. He came to the speed dating event pretending to be broke. A man tired of fake smiles and shallow answers, searching for something real. She wasn't even signed up. She ran in from the street, panicked and breathless, asking him to play her boyfriend because someone was following her. What started as a lie turned into laughter, late-night confessions, and a warmth neither of them had felt in years. She didn't know he was a millionaire. He didn't know she worked 3 jobs just to keep her father alive. But in a city of masks, 2 strangers who were never meant to meet found the one thing they weren't looking for. Something real. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. He didn't know why he was here. Lucas Rivers sat at table 4, already halfway through the second round of speed dates, wondering if this whole night was just an expensive waste of time. His sleeves were rolled up over his forearms, the button-up shirt deliberately plain, the watch on his wrist nothing but a $25 plastic knockoff. He looked like any tired man in his 30s trying to meet someone new. Not like the founder of a health tech startup that had sold for 8 figures 2 years ago. Not like the man whose name quietly appeared on donation plaques across half a dozen oncology centers. Tonight, he was no one, and it was strangely freeing. The woman in front of him was explaining, for the second time, her passion for chakra alignment and pet astrology. He smiled politely, nodded at the appropriate moments, and waited for the little bell to chime. For dates down, then 5, then 6. The same shallow questions, the same rehearsed stories. By the 6th rotation, Lucas had made up his mind. He'd stand up after this one, thank the host, and walk out. Maybe drive out to the shelter tomorrow early, lose himself in something that actually mattered. He glanced at the door just as the 6th woman stood to rotate. But before the next assigned date could sit down, someone else rushed in. A blur of motion, long dark hair, flushed cheeks, and eyes full of panic. The woman looked around, scanning the room like a cornered animal. Then she saw him. Without a word, she walked straight up to Lucas's table, pulled out the chair and sat down fast. "Please," she whispered breathlessly, leaning close. "Just go with it. Pretend you're my boyfriend. Please." Lucas blinked. "What? I'll explain in a minute. Just smile like you know me." Instinct took over. He shifted slightly, leaned in, offered the faintest smile. "Hey babe, you're late." She exhaled in relief, her shoulders sagging. From the corner of his eye, Lucas noticed a man lingering near the entrance. Tall, broad, watching her too closely. His jaw tightened. "Is he following you?" Lucas asked quietly. "I think so. He was on the train, then outside, and I ducked in here. I didn't know this was a dating thing. I just needed people, lights, somewhere to hide." Lucas didn't hesitate. He reached across the table and gently brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're safe now. You found the best fake boyfriend in the building." That made her laugh soft and shaky. "Lucky me." The stalker hesitated a moment longer, then turned and disappeared back through the door. She watched the exit, her eyes wide and uncertain, until she was sure he was gone. Only then did she really look at Lucas, and he looked at her. She was beautiful, but not in the practiced, filtered way he'd seen all night. Her hair was slightly messy, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, lips chapped like she hadn't had time for herself in weeks. She wore a faded green hoodie under a heavy coat, and a thin line of flour, or maybe sugar, smudged one sleeve. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to crash your night." Lucas gave a slight shake of his head. You didn't. Trust me, you saved it. She tilted her head. Oh yeah? Had a rough lineup. You could say that. A smile tugged at her mouth. I wasn't planning on going on any dates tonight. Neither was I, he said, then paused. Well, technically I was, but not like this. They both laughed, and the tension faded like mist. I'm Sadie, she offered after a moment. Lucas, he replied. Not the full name, not the last name, just Lucas. Thank you for helping me, she said, her fingers tracing the rim of her water glass. I really didn't know where else to go. It's been a day. He nodded. I believe you. Want to tell me about it? Sadie hesitated, but something in his voice, gentle, genuine, made her speak. I work mornings at a cafe, she said. Then nights at a warehouse packing online orders. And sometimes I help out at a kids' center on weekends. Today, I spilled hot coffee on myself, missed the bus to the warehouse, and walked 2 miles in the cold. Then that guy followed me. Lucas listened quietly, his chest tightening. That's a lot. Yeah. Her smile was apologetic. Sorry. You probably weren't expecting trauma dumping with your cocktail. I was expecting someone to ask if I was a Gemini. So this is actually refreshing. Sadie laughed again, light, surprised. Well, I don't know your star sign, but you've got excellent fake boyfriend instincts. I moonlight in fake rescues, he deadpanned. And real ones, sometimes. She tilted her head again, curious. Real ones. Lucas sipped his water. I volunteer at a shelter. Few hours away from the city. It's quieter there. Simple. Nobody knows me. She studied him for a beat longer, then smiled. Sounds like peace. It is, he said, and meant it. The bell rang to signal the next rotation, but neither of them moved. The host glanced over, confused. Lucas raised a hand slightly as if to say we're good here. Sadie's cheeks flushed, but she didn't stand. Neither of them wanted to. The room around them continued to buzz with artificial laughter and awkward introductions, but their table became its own little world. One where time slowed, where a man with too many secrets and a woman with too many burdens sat across from each other and didn't have to pretend. Not anymore. They didn't notice when the lights dimmed slightly, didn't see the new guest center or the tables being rearranged. Time folded around their booth like a secret. Sadie leaned back in her chair, fingers curled around a glass of soda the waiter had brought without being asked. Her coat had slipped off one shoulder, revealing the edge of a faded uniform shirt beneath the green hoodie. A name tag was clipped to it upside down. He smiled slightly. You, wear your name tag ironically? She glanced down, then rolled her eyes. Ugh. Cafe life. Morning shift started at 5. I think I put it on while half asleep. Or fully asleep. He hesitated. You work mornings in a cafe and nights in a warehouse? She nodded. And weekends at a kids' center when I can get the hours. I do a little bit of everything. Mostly, I chase bills. Lucas's smile faded slightly. That's a lot. Yeah, well, rent's not going to cry for me. And my dad's medical treatments aren't covered by trying your best, . She said it lightly, but her eyes shifted away. Lucas watched her carefully. You live with your dad? MHM, stage 3. Long. He's hanging in there, but it's rough. I used to dream about going to nursing school, but she shrugged. Now I just dream about getting through the month. Lucas's throat felt tight. He didn't speak right away. Just listened. Really listened. Sadie laughed softly, shaking her head. Sorry. I sound like a walking charity case. No, he said, his voice firmer than he expected. You sound like someone surviving. She looked at him then, really looked. And you? What's your day job, fake boyfriend? Lucas leaned back. Nothing nearly as noble. I float between freelance stuff. Help out at a shelter upstate. Maintenance, food runs, tech when it breaks. Wherever they need a hand. Her brows lifted slightly. Seriously. He nodded. They don't ask questions. I like that. You show up, you help, you leave with tired hands and a quiet mind. There was a pause, warm and thoughtful. Then she said, "You don't strike me as someone who needs quiet." "I didn't think I did," he said, almost to himself. "But lately, it's the only place I feel real." Sadie studied him for a long beat. "You don't talk like the guys I usually meet." Lucas smirked. "I'll take that as a compliment." She sipped her drink. "It is. Most guys just flex their jobs, their car, their gym routine." "Ah. Well," he glanced around, lowered his voice. "I left my abs at home." That made her laugh again. A genuine, surprised sound that drew eyes from nearby tables. She didn't notice. Lucas did and liked that she didn't care. "So why were you here tonight?" she asked, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. He paused. Curiosity. Or boredom. Or maybe just hoping to find someone who didn't ask about my net worth or favorite crypto. Sadie raised an eyebrow. "You get that a lot?" "More than I'd like. Tonight I figured I'd be a blank slate. Just Lucas." She tilted her head, considering. "It's not a bad look on you." A long silence settled between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was full. Comfortable. Lucas found himself studying the lines under her eyes, the small ink stain on her finger, the way she leaned forward when she was truly listening. She wasn't polished. She wasn't trying. And she was more compelling than anyone he'd met in years. He cleared his throat. "You said you work at a kids' center?" Sadie lit up a little. "Yeah. Just part-time. It doesn't pay much, but I love it. The kids are chaotic and messy and honest. When they laugh, it feels like something good is still possible." "You sound like someone who should have been a teacher." "I wanted to be a nurse," she said softly. "Still do, deep down. I used to draw little anatomy cartoons to help myself study. But when my dad got sick, I had to drop out of the program. Bills don't wait, you know?" Lucas nodded slowly. "You still draw?" "Sometimes. I sketch on break. Mostly silly stuff. Kids' books, animals, little moments. It helps. I'd love to see your work." She smiled, looking a little shy for the first time. "Maybe." Outside, the sky had deepened into navy and snow had begun to fall in soft flakes past the windows. Inside, the buzz of the event faded into the background as if it no longer applied to them. "I should probably go," she said eventually, though her voice lacked conviction. Lucas's eyes flicked to the exit. That guy, he could still be out there. Sadie's smile was crooked. "You planning to walk me home, too?" "I don't have to. But I'd like to." She watched him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay. But you're buying coffee on the way." "I need caffeine just to stay upright." He stood and offered her his coat. She hesitated, then slipped into it, the sleeves too long on her. She smelled like cinnamon and tiredness and winter. They stepped into the night together, two strangers from different worlds, walking side by side like they'd done it 100 times before. And neither of them said what they were thinking. That maybe they didn't want this night to end. The snow had thickened into a lazy drift by the time they reached the corner. Street lamps cast golden halos through the flurry, turning the city soft at the edges. Sadie clutched her paper coffee cup with both hands, sleeves of his coat nearly swallowing her fingers. Lucas walked beside her, hands in his pockets, close enough to feel the warmth radiating off her even through the cold. Neither of them had said much since leaving the cafe. But it wasn't silence in the uncomfortable sense. It was something else, like both were afraid that words might break the fragile thread between them. "This is stupid," she said suddenly. Lucas glanced over. "Walking in a snowstorm without gloves? Or?" She smiled faintly. "No. This. Me. I just met you and I'm walking around in your jacket like I belong there." "You do." Her steps faltered just for a second. "You don't even know me," she said. "I think I'm starting to," he replied quietly. "And I want to know more." Sadie looked ahead again, her lips pressed together. "You ever get scared of liking someone too soon?" Lucas breathed out, white fog clouding the air. "Yeah. Especially when they feel real." She looked up at him, something open in her expression that hadn't been there before. "I don't usually do this," she said. "Talk this much. Trust this fast." "I don't either," he said. They reached a small park bench under a flickering street lamp. Without speaking, they sat. The world felt distant here. Only the snow and the steam rising from her cup. Only the faint hum of passing cars and their shared breath in the air. Lucas glanced sideways. Your dad. Does he know how much you do for him? Sadie exhaled slowly. He tries to pretend he doesn't. He hates that I'm giving up my life to save his. Are you? What? Giving it up? She thought for a moment. No, I think I'm just putting it on hold. Just until I know he's okay. Until I can breathe without doing math in my head about prescriptions and rent. Lucas nodded. That's not giving up. That's surviving. She turned to him, her eyes softer now. What about you? What are you surviving? He hesitated, then shrugged. Some days, the noise, the expectations. People who want things I don't know how to give. Like what? Success, control, answers. Sadie leaned forward slightly. You talk like someone who's been rich and lost it. Lucas smiled crookedly. Close. I've had people look at me like I was the answer to something. Mostly, I was just trying not to fall apart. You don't seem broken, she said. Neither do you, he said. But we both know looks lie. She looked down at her hands. I almost lost myself last year. Everything got dark. I couldn't keep up. There were nights I'd sit in the cafe freezer just to cry where no one would hear. Lucas didn't say anything, just reached out, slow and deliberate, and gently touched her hand. She didn't pull away. I used to think if I worked hard enough, something good would find me, she whispered. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe something already did, he said. Their eyes met again. This time the silence wasn't careful. It was weighted, electric. Sadie's voice was barely audible. You're not like anyone I've met. Good different or weird different? She smiled. Good. Scary good. He leaned back, breaking the moment just enough to breathe. I could walk you home, or we could keep walking nowhere. She hesitated. I live way out in Brooklyn. I don't mind. She searched his face, looking for the catch. When she didn't find one, she stood. All right then, but if I fall asleep on the train, I'm blaming you. Deal. They rode the quietest line across the river, side by side in the mostly empty car. She rested her head on the window. He watched the reflection of her face in the glass. He didn't ask for her number. She didn't offer it. But when they stepped onto the platform and she turned to face him, there was something in the way she lingered, coat still wrapped around her, hair slightly damp from the snow. Thank you, she said, for pretending and not pretending. Lucas smiled. Same time tomorrow? She laughed, short and soft. You don't even know where I work. Then tell me. She paused, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a pen from the cafe. On her napkin, she wrote the name of the shop and her shift hours. When she handed it to him, their fingers touched again. Don't be weird, she said. I'll try. She turned, walked up the steps, and disappeared into the city. Lucas stood there for a long time, napkin in hand, coat thin against the wind, trying to remember the last time a goodbye made him feel like something had just started. Sadie hadn't planned to attend the benefit gala. It wasn't her world. Not the chandeliers, not the string quartets or the champagne flutes passed on silver trays. But her friend Dana worked part-time at the event hall and had an extra invite, and the flyer said all proceeds went to cancer care facilities. That word alone, cancer, was enough to make her put on the nicest dress she owned, ironed for the first time in years, and brush out her curls with trembling fingers. Her dad had smiled when he saw her by the door. "You look like Hope, kiddo." She didn't feel like Hope. She felt like a tired daughter in borrowed heels, trying not to cry over what she couldn't fix. The hall buzzed with wealth. Not loud, not vulgar. Just that heavy, effortless kind, wrapped in tailored suits and quiet, knowing nods. Sadie stayed near the wall, sipping seltzer and trying not to look like a mistake. Dana waved her over. "Hey, they're about to announce tonight's lead sponsor. Some big private donor who's been funding new cancer centers across the state. Apparently, he's a total ghost. No press, no photos, but tonight he's here." Sadie nodded vaguely, uninterested. She scanned the room absently, and then froze. Her breath caught mid-sip. There he was, on the stage. Lucas. He wasn't in flannel or rolled-up sleeves. He wasn't the tired, funny man who walked her through the snow or made her laugh on the subway. He stood tall, composed, wearing a suit that looked like it had never known creases. The host was introducing him with reverence, listing achievements, foundations, centers opened, lives touched. Lucas Rivers, founder of the Carver Health Initiative, whose generosity has funded 4 integrated cancer treatment facilities this year alone. The applause drowned out everything else. Sadie couldn't hear the words anymore, only the blood rushing in her ears. He smiled on stage. Not the smile she knew, not the quiet curve of the mouth over coffee. This was the polished public version, the one he never showed her. A man stepped beside him with a plaque. Lucas took it, thanked the crowd, said a few words, gracious, composed, smooth. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He saw her. His eyes scanned the crowd and landed on her. His smile faltered just for a second. His shoulders tensed. But he didn't stop speaking. He couldn't. The moment was scripted, sealed. Sadie turned and walked out. The cold air hit her like a slap. Her heels clicked too fast on the sidewalk as she tried to hold back whatever was rising in her throat. She kept walking, didn't know where, didn't care. He lied. Not about everything, but about enough. She didn't care that he was rich. Not really. But he had stood across from her, nodding along as she poured out her life, her fears, her desperation, and never said a word about who he really was. He let her believe they were equals in struggle. Let her carry her shame like weight while he stood weightless beside her. She ended up at the river, sitting on a bench, shivering. Her phone buzzed. "Lucas." "Sadie. Please, let me explain." She stared at the message, read it twice, then powered off her phone. Inside the gala, Lucas left the stage the moment the final speech ended. He didn't wait for photos, didn't speak to donors, just moved through the crowd like someone underwater. He had wanted to tell her, had almost said the truth a dozen times. But every time she laughed, every time her guard dropped, he'd convinced himself to wait. Just one more hour, one more day, one more time together before reality crashed in. Now it had. And the worst part wasn't that she was gone. The worst part was that she looked at him like she didn't know him at all. The coffee shop was nearly empty by the time Sadie's shift ended. She wiped down the counter in silence, her feet aching, her chest heavier than usual. 2 days had passed since the gala. 2 days since everything she thought she knew about Lucas folded in on itself. She hadn't answered his texts. She hadn't blocked him either. But the silence felt like a boundary she wasn't ready to break. He didn't chase, and that hurt more than anything. "Hey, I'll close up," her coworker said gently. watching her a little too closely. "You look like you need to go home." Sadie nodded, murmured a thank you, and grabbed her coat. The napkin with his name and number was still folded in her pocket, slightly worn now. She didn't throw it away. She just couldn't look at it. Outside, the sky was low and gray, the streets slick with early rain. She turned the corner toward the bus stop and stopped. He was there, standing across the street. No suit, no pretense. Just jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie under a jacket that had clearly been worn 100 times too many. Hands in his pockets, eyes locked on hers. He didn't move, didn't wave, just waited. She crossed slowly. "I'm not here to talk you into anything," he said when she reached him. His voice was quiet, careful. "I just needed to see you. As me." She looked at him, really looked. He seemed tired, not like the man on stage, more like the one who'd brushed her hair back and called her safe. "You lied to me," she said. "I didn't tell you. That's not the same." Her eyes narrowed. "It felt the same." "I know." He looked down at his shoes, then up again. "You made me feel like I didn't have to lead with the money, the name, the power, like I could just exist. And I got scared that telling you the truth would ruin that. That you'd stop looking at me the way you did." She crossed her arms. "So you said nothing and let me spill my whole damn life like it was cheap." "No," he stepped forward, voice firmer now. "I listened because it mattered. Not because I pitied you. Not because I was hiding. Because you were the first real thing I've had in a long time." The rain picked up, slow and steady. He didn't move. Sadie stared at him, heart tight. "What are you even doing here?" "I wanted to know how your dad's doing." She blinked. That was not the answer she expected. "He had a scan yesterday," she said automatically. "We're still waiting on results." Lucas nodded. "I'd like to meet him, if that's okay." Sadie laughed, sharp, startled. "Why?" "Because he's your world," Lucas said simply. "And I want to understand what made you who you are." For a moment she didn't speak. Then, "Come by after 8. He'll be up watching TV and pretending he's not in pain." Lucas just nodded. No smile, no clever line, just a man accepting something sacred. That night he sat in her kitchen. Her dad was thin and pale but bright-eyed, cracking dry jokes and trying to stand even when Lucas told him to stay seated. They talked about baseball, about hospital food, about living through things you don't talk about. Sadie watched from the doorway, silent, arms crossed, chin tucked into her sweater. Lucas washed the dishes after. Didn't ask, just did it. Later, on the porch, she finally broke the silence. "You didn't have to do any of this." "I know. And you're not here because you feel guilty?" "I'm here," he said, "because I stayed up all night thinking about what matters. And it wasn't the speech, or the gala, or the next center I fund." He looked at her. It was a girl who works 3 jobs, takes care of her father, and still finds a way to laugh like the world hasn't broken her. Her breath hitched. He stepped closer. "I'm not perfect. I messed this up. But if you give me another chance, I'll stop hiding. I'll show up. Every time." Sadie didn't answer with words. She leaned forward and rested her head against his chest. And he didn't move. A week later, they sat across from each other in a tiny restaurant tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore. No chandeliers, no nameplates, just chipped mugs, flickering candlelight, and the quiet hum of an old jazz record playing behind the counter. Sadie wore a navy blue sweater and jeans, hair loosely tied back, paint still under one fingernail. Lucas looked relaxed for once, dressed down in a way that didn't feel like a costume. His coat hung behind him. His phone was off. No stage. No speeches. Just them. "You didn't try to impress me," she said after a long sip of tea. "Not even when you had every chance." "I wasn't trying to impress you," he replied. "I was just trying not to scare you off." "You almost did," she admitted. "But then you showed up." He looked at her across the table, and there was something soft in his gaze. "I didn't want perfect. I wanted honest." Sadie toyed with the edge of a napkin. "This doesn't feel real sometimes." "It is." "How do you know?" "Because I'm not pretending anymore," he said. "And neither are you." She smiled, just slightly, and reached into her bag, pulled out a folded piece of paper and slid it toward him. He opened it carefully. It was a sketch, him and her, sitting at a park bench under snowfall, her laughing, his hand outstretched like he was about to brush a snowflake from her cheek. The caption below read, "Real begins when you stop acting." Lucas stared at it for a moment, then looked up. "You drew this?" She shrugged. "Something told me I might want to remember that night." He folded the paper and placed it gently in his jacket pocket. Like something fragile, like something worth keeping. When they left the restaurant, it had just started snowing again. They walked side by side down the quiet street, shoes crunching over thin frost, breath hanging in the air like smoke. At the corner, Sadie stopped. "I don't need flowers," she said. "Or diamonds. Or fairy tales. I don't have any of those on me," he replied softly. "What I need," she continued, stepping closer, "is to know that when things get hard, and they will, you'll stay." Lucas didn't hesitate. "I will." She searched his face for a second longer. Then, "Good." And she leaned up and kissed him. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. He kissed her back, hands gentle at her waist, heart full of something he hadn't dared name until now. When they pulled apart, she whispered against his chest, "You fell in love, didn't you?" He smiled into her hair. "Yeah," he said. "I didn't mean to, but I did." And for once, neither of them ran. They just walked on, through the snow, through the silence, into whatever was next. Together.